very high pressure and can penetrate the skin, so be sure to wear gloves when bleeding the high-pressure side. For more information about bleeding procedures, be sure to refer to Group 14 in the Ram Truck Service Manual. In addition to contaminants or air, restrictions in the fuel supply to the injection pump can also cause problems. You're probably well aware of the importance of having a fuel filter that is operating properly. A clogged or restricted filter can cause a no-start, low power, or excessive white smoke. But keep in mind that a clogged pre-filter screen in the fuel heater can have the same effect. So be sure to clean the pre-filter each time you change the fuel filter. One way to check for restriction is by running a pressure check of the fuel delivery system. To do this, install the tools from Special Toolkit 6977 on the fuel injection pump. Special tool number 6976, the fuel feed line adapter, is installed at the injection pump fuel inlet. And special tool number 6828, the diesel low pressure gauge, is installed on the adapter. With the tools in place, start the engine and allow it to idle. At idle, the gauge should read 17 to 22 psi. Raising the engine speed to 2250 RPM should cause the gauge reading to rise to at least 25 psi. Do not automatically condemn the lift pump if pressure is low. As discussed earlier, the fuel filter or pre-filter could be clogged, or the injection pump overflow valve could be at fault. If the filters are at fault, the pressure reading will rise once you've serviced them. Besides the filters, a faulty overflow valve could also be causing the low reading. To find out if this is the case, carefully squeeze the rubber return line with vice grips while observing the gauge. If the pressure rises, the overflow valve is at fault and must be replaced. If the reading is still low, the lift pump is probably the cause. A much less common cause of low pressure is restriction in the tank or the fuel supply lines. The service manual contains a test for fuel line restriction in Group 14. A fuel injector that is malfunctioning can result in a dead cylinder, causing low power. You can check quickly for a dead cylinder with a digital thermometer. Place the thermometer probe against each individual exhaust runner. The runner that is significantly cooler indicates the dead cylinder and possibly the injector that is malfunctioning. If you do need to service fuel injectors, be sure to use the correct washers. The washers on fuel injectors used on all 1994 and 95 engines and on 96 engines equipped with automatic transmissions are 1.5 millimeters thick. Those on injectors intended for use on 1996 engines equipped with manual transmissions are 0.5 millimeter thick. We've saved the fuel injection pump for last in our discussion of the fuel system, and for good reason. For one thing, checking pump timing is time-consuming and should usually come last in your series of checks. Also, the fuel injection pump is an expensive part that should not be condemned until all other causes have been eliminated. A mistimed or malfunctioning injection pump can cause a number of symptoms, including low power. If the symptoms include white smoke and rough idle when cold, it indicates retarded pump timing. To check pump timing, first, disconnect the pigtail harness from the fuel shutdown solenoid. Then attempt to start the engine a few times to eliminate the chance the engine may temporarily start on residual fuel. Then remove the rocker cover so you can observe the number 1 cylinder's intake and exhaust valves. Also, remove the plug from the flywheel access hole. The hole is located on the engine's rear flange on the exhaust side. Insert a barring tool into the hole. Then rotate the tool counterclockwise while maintaining pressure on the timing pin. The pin is located under the fuel injection pump. When the engine is rotated to the top dead center position, you'll be able to push the timing pin into the hole in the camshaft gear. If you're on the compression stroke for the number 1 cylinder, the intake and exhaust valves for that cylinder will be closed. At this point, mark the crankshaft dampener in relation to the engine to establish top dead center. Also, pull the pin out of the camshaft gear so you don't break it when you rotate the engine later on. Next, remove the high pressure line for the #1 cylinder from the fuel injection pump and loosen the #1 delivery valve holder using special socket 6840, but do not use the socket to remove the holder. Instead, carefully tip the holder with one hand while using the other one to hold the bottom so the spring, fill piece, and shims do not slip out. Place these and all other injection pump parts on a clean surface. Then use a magnet to remove the two pieces which make up the delivery valve assembly, and use a pick to remove the delivery valve washer if one is present. If you remove a washer, be sure to use a new one when reassembling the pump. At this point, you'll need to install some special tools in the #1 delivery valve holder. The tools consist of the adapter, number 6842, and the dial indicator and tip, numbers 6859 and 6843. First, install the adapter finger tight and make sure its set screws are loose. Then install the dial indicator with its tip. Position the indicator to read between 7 and 9 millimeters, as indicated on the inner dial, and tighten the set screws. The divisions on the inner dial represent 1 millimeter. One revolution of the needle on the inner dial represents 10 millimeters. However, keep in mind that the indicator is capable of measuring 20 millimeters, or 2 revolutions of the inner dial. The divisions on the outer dial represent 1/100th of a millimeter, and one revolution of the needle represents 1 millimeter. Next, with the special tools in place, rotate the engine opposite normal rotation 1/4 turn, or until you see the dial indicator needle stop moving. This is the inner base circle on the cam lobe for the #1 pumping element. You can get a rough idea of the extent of dial indicator travel by referring to the plunger lift specifications. Then zero the outer dial. At this point, rotate the engine in the normal direction, using the timing pin to once again locate top dead center. If the pump is timed correctly, top dead center should position the tip of the cam lobe directly under the indicator, and the dial revolutions should indicate the correct amount of lift. To find out if this is the case for 1994 to 1996 engines, compare the reading to those in the Diesel Timing Specs TSB, which you should be receiving shortly. If the reading is not within specifications, you can use the procedure in the service manual to adjust pump timing, or you can remove the pump and send it to the nearest Bosch service center. See the Bosch service dealer directory for the service center closest to you. Bosch service centers should also be listed in your local phone directory. Sending the pump out to be calibrated has certain advantages because Bosch personnel have the equipment to check the pump out completely. Now that we've covered fuel system related causes, let's check your knowledge with a review question. A low pressure reading at the fuel supply inlet of the injection pump increases after the fuel return line is closed off. What is the most likely cause? A, lift pump, B, overflow valve, or C, fuel filter? The answer is B, overflow valve. Squeezing off the return line is a way of narrowing down the cause of low pressure. Engine and transmission related causes may also result in a low power complaint. Early checks should include the valve clearance adjustment. This adjustment is also a part of scheduled maintenance, which